Another Hollywood remake of a beloved animated classic has arrived once again. This time, it's DreamWorks' own How to Train Your Dragon. So does this one actually stand a chance, or is it gonna go into the cesspool of all the other forgotten and not as good remakes? We'll get into that, but firstly, yes, I do think this one stands a chance. The experiment going on behind the scenes here had given me faith. The director of the remake here is the same director as the animated trilogy, the ones that are extremely good. So what better way to ensure that this remake still captures and retains the tone and spirit and fervor of the original trilogy, to make sure that that's not lost in translation? You have the guy guiding the ship from the beginning. So, did it work? Let's talk about it. Firstly, what I liked. That spirit and tone is absolutely still here. And it's here in spades. The relationship between Hiccup and Toothless is absolutely the star of the show still. And they knock it out the park once again. It's just a joy to watch. And kudos to Mason Thames, or Mason Thames, however you pronounce it. I don't really know what else he's in, but he did a fantastic job here as Hiccup. And those are some big shoes to fill, especially reacting to a CGI dragon that's not present on set. Wonderfully done. That veil between CGI and real life never really falters in this movie. So kudos to him and kudos to the team behind the film for making these dragons, including Toothless, feel so real and present. Speaking of which, the dragons here were a really big plus. There's so much more that live action dragons allow you to do that the animated format just can't. Their presence is much stronger. Their presence is more terrifying. You feel the weight behind their bodies as they thud and move around a battlefield more, especially towards the end. The big battle at the end of this movie is so much more engrossing because you feel the terror of a, spoiler alert, ginormous dragon coming after your main characters. And you have these much longer shots of one character flying on a dragon while this big behemoth's in the background and it doesn't cut away for a while. That's not typically something that you see in an animated format, and the movie here does it really well. It felt like watching a really high budget Game of Thrones episode back when, you know, the Game of Thrones dragon episodes were good. Hiccup flying on Toothless feels so much more exhilarating because the camera is taking you, the audience member, with them on this ride, on this flight that's 100 miles an hour through rocks, through canyons, dipping their toes into water. It all feels so much more real because you feel so much more present. Another example is this cage fight between Hiccup and this really scary fire dragon that we saw in the animated one. This dragon now has that physicality to it. It scratches at the cage barrier towards the audience members and you feel the same terror they do, or it chases Hiccup with a snarl and you feel much more close up to it as the camera captures every single little detail on the dragon's snout as if you're standing right there. This scene feels so much more tense than the animated versions because of those details, because you can soak up every inch on the dragon's scales and almost feel the heat from its fiery breath as it chases Hiccup. So the dragons translated really well here, like surprisingly well. It is absolutely the one portion of this entire film where I can look at it and confidently say, I prefer this to the animated version's portrayal. But dragons are one thing, because dragons are cool, right? It's not hard to win me over with dragons. But humor? Humor's another thing entirely. The humor in this film was not adapted. And I mean that word quite literally. The humor was not adapted from an animated format to a live action one. It was copied. It was copied and pasted. So picture the same comedic timing, the same character personalities, the same slapstick that was in the animated format, and then just paint real people over it. Does that feel like it would actually work? Maybe it can work, but in this movie, it absolutely does not. The fluidity and precise control an animator has over a character in an animated film ensures that their movement is tailor-made to both the character's portrayal and the joke being written for them, or the dialogue they're trying to portray. Whether it be funny or not funny, that reaction is tailor-made. To take that same delivery, the same line delivery done in the animated format, and give it to an actor and say, imitate this as best as you can, that's only not really fair to the actor, but it's not gonna be as good as the original.
So, you got me. It's time everyone knew. Drag me back, go ahead. Here we go. Ow! Why would you do that?
That's for the lies. That's for everything else.
Oh, man.
You got me. It's time everybody knew. Just take me back.
Ow! Ow! Why would you do that?
That's for the lies. And that's for everything else.
And unfortunately, that same example can be applied to every emotion that's in this movie. Humor, drama, a son trying to make his dad proud of him. Some, don't get me wrong, are still executed extremely well. Hell, I even cried at some points in this movie despite knowing exactly what's gonna happen. But it's like taking a custom-made shoe on your right foot and putting it on your left. Sure, it still fits, it still works, but you just know the entire time that the other way is better. But I don't want you to get the impression that the How to Train Your Dragon remake is bad, because it's not. I think the story of How to Train Your Dragon is stronger than whatever translation issues occur. The story between Hiccup and the Toothless as he tries to make his dad proud of him on an island of Vikings where he truly doesn't feel like he fits in. I think it's timeless, I think it's classic, and I think it's done extremely well here as well as in the original. And kudos to this movie as well, because unlike other modern remakes that are going on right now, they don't try to change anything. You might see that as a drawback, but just look at this past Lilo and Stitch movie remake, right? The changed ending caused so much of an uproar that I almost got to look at How to Train Your Dragon remake and thank it for not trying to change too much. It keeps that story intact, yes. You know what's going to happen, yes. But the story is still beautiful all the same. And this time, you get really cool dragons while you watch it. They don't try to add on top of it either. So even besides the whole remixing of the story, they don't try to add an extra 30 minutes to it or an extra hour of uncut content that we didn't see in the original because it was cut for pacing reasons, whatever. The movie's still very well paced. There's not one scene that feels out of place. And that would have been something very easy for some Hollywood exec to force into this script as they were making this movie. But they didn't. They stuck to their guns. They stuck to the original script that they knew worked. And I think it really paid off. I really enjoyed this remake. Did I enjoy it as much as the original? No, I still want my right shoe on my right foot, don't get me wrong. But knowing this option's available, to see these cool dragons, to see a really epic third act in a significantly more grandiose way that the animated didn't quite achieve. All of that still works, and I'm glad that I have that option. And I'm glad people out there have that option if they do, for some strange reason, view animation as a barrier to entry. But I still think you should give the animated films a chance if you haven't already. I think this remake does get a thumbs up. I think we're going to absolutely remember this as one of the good ones. But what did you think of How to Train Your Dragon remake? Or what do you want to see from the next one? Do you think they should just remake this entire trilogy? Or should they pull a Lion King and just try to go in a different direction? I kind of want the second option, if I'm being honest. Let me know down in the comments below, and for more movie chats like these over a cup of coffee, like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.